Hey guys, how's it going? So for my last video before Season 8 officially starts, I wanted to take some time and go over how Ezreal's doing right now since he had those nerfs recently, since at the start of the preseason, he was by far the top 80 carry. And I've seen a lot of hate towards Ezreal since that nerf happened last patch, and a lot of people are saying it's a lot more difficult to CS with him since the attack speed nerf, and I do agree with that. It is a little bit more difficult to CS since that nerf, but it makes you rely on using your Q more to last hit, which as Ezreal is something that's okay because we want to stack our tier anyway. So we're going to be using our Q naturally to try and stack that tier as quickly as possible. So once you get your first back and you're able to buy your tier of the goddess, the CSing really doesn't change too much, because normally you want to be using your Q to CS every time you're able to get more stacks on the tier anyway, so you can get that stacked as quickly as possible. And you want to have that stacked around the 20-minute mark. If you're hitting about 18, 19 minutes, that's really good. If you're going 21, 22, 23 minutes, you're a little bit late on stacking the tier, but it also does determine how fast you stack it and when you actually buy it, which is another thing that's important on Ezreal. Try and get that tier as quickly as possible. Now, if you don't have a good time in lane to go base without missing like a wave and a half or 2 waves, then you're going to want to stay in lane and try and protect your tower. But if you can get a good shove on, get about 1,000 gold so you can get a good buy for that tier, then you're really going to have an easy time stacking that for the rest of the game. The other thing that this nerf really makes you focus on more is managing your passive stacks and getting that bonus attack speed from your passive. Having 5 stacks going into a fight is so helpful to your damage output. It really does help, especially before you get your Blade of the Ruined King, because you really don't have any attack speed with your first 2 items. And it does take some time to learn how to manage those stacks properly, especially if you're shoving a wave in. You want to try and save your Q for the last hit on the last minion before you start running up to the next wave, because you do want to take those 5 stacks with you into the next wave. And that's something that you're going to learn here going forward. Another thing is that your W, use it to bridge the gap between space on the map where you're trying to find something that you can Q to keep your passive up. Try and use that W on your teammates, because that does add a stack to your passive, so you can W your teammate, move a little bit further on the map, and then you have a wave or some sort of jungle camp that you can Q off of to keep your stacks going. So in my opinion, Ezreal is still very strong. I think he is one of the top picks still. I don't think he's the best pick right now. I think he has fallen down a few pegs, but I still think he is very strong. Yes, he is weaker than what he was before the nerf, but there's just some tweaks here and there that you're going to have to adjust into your gameplay so you can still reach his maximum potential. It's not as easy to do insane amounts of damage. You can still do it. It just takes a little bit more practice and skill to make sure you're outputting that same damage. And before I go into the build and the runes that you should be taking on Ezreal, I do just want to say that Ezreal is a very good solo queue champion also, and he's also another pretty easy AD carry to learn AD carry on. The reason being is because you have your E, which is so important with repositioning and really does help you kite for yourself as well as keep yourself alive, which a lot of the times in solo queue, especially lower level solo queue, you have to peel for yourself because you're not going to have as many tanks or supportive style champions that are going to be helping you. So having that extra mobility really does help in solo queue. Now for runes, the best rune that you're going to be able to take here is Kleptomancy on Ezreal. It's very strong. It really does help his laning phase, and that's something that he's always been a little weaker on. It's always been inconsistent because his whole laning phase relied on landing Qs, and it still does rely on that now, but when you do land your Qs, you get that extra little bit of value by getting those items off of the Kleptomancy, which really does help you in lane to get to that late game potential. Now I have done some experimenting on Press the Attack Ezreal. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely not as good or consistent as Kleptomancy, but if you're looking to kind of spice things up a little bit, try out Press the Attack on Ezreal. It's interesting. Now for the next rune, you're going to want to take the Biscuit Delivery. I did take Stopwatch for a while. I think Stopwatch is a good option also, but I do think Biscuit Delivery does give you more value over time, especially getting that 15% mana back. It does help you stay out in lane to stack your tier longer, and having the extra 15% regen health with the Biscuit does help with those tough lane matchups to help your sustain. The next rune you're going to want to get is the Magical Footwear. I do think it is the best one out of the 3 options. I don't think any of the other 2 are very good. I think the value you get from getting the free pair of boots outweighs the other 2 options by far. And the last rune in this tree is going to be Cosmic Insight. Getting an extra 5% CDR on your abilities, your summoner spells, and your active items is very strong on Ezreal and really does outweigh the other 2 options. And for your secondary rune option, you're going to want to go Sorcery and get Mana Flow Band, which really does help with your mana sustain, so so you can stay out in lane and stack your tier faster. And then the other option, you can go Scorch or you can go Adaptive Focus. I personally like both. I've been using both of them, but lately I've been using Adaptive Focus because you do get that extra bit of damage come mid to late game once you're trying to poke people down with your Qs when you're at full health. Now moving on to your build here, you're going to want to get your tier as quickly as possible since you do want to get that stacked as fast as you can. You're going to want to get your Ionian Boots of Lucidity to get that CDR, and then finish out your Mirror Mana so you can really get that stacking. I like to go Iceborne Gauntlet. I think it's a very well-rounded item for Ezreal. You do naturally do a lot of damage once you do transform into a Mana Mune, and I think having that extra armor really helps with your dueling potential with the other enemy AD carry as well as other AD champs on their team. And the slow really does hurt a lot of enemies melee champions. Now Triforce is just going to be outright more damage, which isn't always a bad thing. I personally like having the defensive option of the Iceborne. I think it does help round out your build a little bit more and make you more durable, and also add some utility with that slow, which will keep you alive in fights a little bit longer and allow you to do a little bit more damage. So I personally like that better, but you can go either option here. And for your last core item, you're going to want to get a Blade of the Ruined King. The attack speed here is much needed by the time you're getting your third item. I usually get the attack speed part of it first, and then I'll get the Cutlass after, because having that additional attack speed 3 items into the game really is needed on Ezreal after the nerf. And to finish out your build, as usual, you're going to want your Last Whisper and your defensive item, and that's going to be situational here depending on the champions you're playing against and the state of the game, but that's something that you can judge per game. So that's everything that I have for you today, guys. I know this is a little bit longer than most of my other videos, but I did have a lot to say about the state of Ezreal right now and how he's doing going into the start of Season 8. As always, guys, if you have made it this far in the video, I really do appreciate you sticking around to the end. It really does mean a lot to me. If you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel for more up-to-date information on the AD carry meta. With Season 8 starting here within the next couple days, I do wish you guys luck on your placement games. I hope those go well, and I'll see you guys next time.